Hello and welcome back to Satisfactory. We have got our little pilot plant for aluminum going over in the distance. Way over in the distance. And I have torn down this little area here where we were doing blueprints because I'm going to do blueprints somewhere else. And today we are going to unlock a bunch of things, starting with the Hoverpack. Because the Hoverpack is really nice, and I have been waiting for this. Also, we're going to be unlocking Logistics Mark V, which we will be using the moment we have a decent production rate on all-clad aluminum sheets. Hazmat suit, which will allow us to walk up next to any radioactive stuff and just, expend filters instead of dying. And control set to develop, which gets us the blender and a whole bunch of other things. Our first part for the elevator. First part? Anyway, I think it's the first of the parts we've unlocked. Gets us radio control units, which will be needed to unlock Tier 8. It gets us supercomputers and batteries will become very important when we get to being able to do this. We're not there yet. We're going to unlock those three. I will have Blender unlocked, and at the end of the episode, depending on time, I may or may not go over new recipes. I will need time to integrate those into my systems and think about how to build a better aluminum factory using blenders and a better oil area using blenders. So we're coming up close on this last bit where we're starting to build. We're going to start to build what I think of as the permanent bits of the factory. So oil and aluminum based on blenders are kind of an important thing. Nuclear power, we're not going to get today, but we're going to start doing nuclear power soon. Particle enrichment, I'm going to unlock particle enrichment before I start to build a nuclear power station, because if you don't have particle enrichment, you have nuclear waste you have to deal with, and I'm going to be, from the beginning, planning on recycling all of my nuclear waste back into particle enrichment where I can consume it rather than let it build up somewhere. But today is Tier 7 day. What are we going to be doing during these multi-minute periods where we're waiting on stuff? Well, the first thing is, let me get rid of the jetpack that burns fuel in favor of the Hoverpack, which burns electricity. Oh, that is so much better. We can actually just hover without bouncing on the buttons. So anywhere we have power, we can jetpack around. On the lower left-hand side of the screen, you'll see that little icon that's spinning there. The white line around it represents how close you are to power. Full, when you're like right next to something. And it gets smaller and smaller as you get farther and farther away. And I think there's a limited fall rate when you've got no power at all. I don't know how this works. This is literally the first time I've opened up the jetpack in 1.0. Exclamation point pops up when you are fairly far away, but you're still within range to do stuff. Anyway, so today's task while we're waiting for the pods to return is going to be to work on some blueprints. And what we have over here is my inspiration. This is the 5L tower and platform blueprint that Bits has produced. He's produced a whole collection of this is kind of the baseline start from here. Let's go over the features of this. He's got a great video on it. I'm just going to touch on things to show you what features I think are important. He has space up top for 2 rail lines going each direction, which is great. He's got a place to stand up here, which is great because you didn't use the power tower that has its own built-in thing. If you did that, if you try to build this blueprint with the power tower that has a railing around it up here, it's got a ladder coming down through the middle, which kind of looks really bad with the hypertube in the middle, which is the next feature. We've got a hypertube. I can go through the hypertube. Well, I can't go through, but you get what I'm saying. We've got a hypertube. We can connect these up, and automatically where we have our rail stations, we also have a throughway and a hypertube that we can go through. He has lights. I'm not going to do the lights because it's really cool and it's really nice and allows you to light things up. But here's the difference between what Bits is doing and what I'm doing. He has a factory that's turning out enormous amounts of resources. I have a factory that turns out resources slowly, but accumulates them overnight into boxes. So I don't really want to spend enormous amounts of time placing 2 or 3 of these guys and then waiting, and then placing 2 or 3 of these guys and then waiting. I mean, even though I don't have to fly all the way across the world now to go get more stuff, that's kind of, it's a little more sit and chill than I normally like to do. So we're going to be building a discount thing. In fact, I'm going to call it Cheap Track, CT for short, Cheap Track. Let's put in our blueprint designer. And I need to center it up. We are centered that way. I'm going to keep this here as kind of an inspiration. So the important things are, I need lines for rail. Oh, I didn't mention the trays down below. He mentions these as express rail. And then he makes the point that if you put a rail in the obvious place here and you're going this way, you jump out, you end up right inside the fence. You're kind of stuck. So, what this is inspiring me to do is I'm going to keep the lower stuff. I'm not going to put the top stuff on yet. That'll be for later when we actually need more trains in our layout. And we'll add those to the blueprint and retrofit things. Since we are not doing the top layer, a lot of this I don't need to build up. So we are not going to go to the expense of building up the street lights or the doohickeys along the top. I originally actually thought I would start from his blueprint and remove things. I realized later on that's a whole lot of extra work. But we're going to keep the same basic feel. I think, sort of. Only sort of. That's the top. Keep the bottom. Rail trays 1 meter lower than the middle area. This is a station area. This is a stop. So let's lay this out. An easy thing for me is to lay them out with the normal foundations. This way I can focus on what way everything's oriented. Some of the foundations have patterns on the top that need to be oriented, some don't. The interesting thing is if I go asphalt, there is a faint line that goes down the middle. And if you orient it this way, the line will go down the middle of all of these, and that's what I want. So there's our passenger platform. What I want to do is, when I'm coming up this way on the train, I'm doing a left-hand drive, so that when I get out of the train, I jump out toward the middle. If I just place this in here, like this, I will end up jumping down into the gap between the train and here. So I'm going to use a little trick. I'm going to put in a concrete pillar. Now, I am fairly certain, well, Helps if I do the zoop. I'm fairly certain now that if I have a train here and I get out of it, it will place me on top of this edge piece. Let's do the same thing on the end here. Something to notice is that you can place things inside the blueprint designer, which actually extend outside the blueprint designer. That's going to limit what you can do. For instance, I couldn't place this blueprint inside the designer anymore because it has stuff that's outside. I can load it, but I can't place it. That's all right. Just going to do that. Oh, and I will need to pull this apart for just a moment. The other thing I want to do, even though it does add parts to it, I want to put down railings. Easy way to do that is to grab a wall. That. Wall. This guy's back in. Did I delete? I think I deleted my little one by in here. Let's absolutely check and make sure. Yes, I did. So there's the outside railing. I can put you on there because that's the edge of the main thing, but I'm not going to do that. The platform, just going to do the ends, so that much of it. That way when we rock up on the train and we get out here, we will have a nice open spot to jump off into the passenger platform. Okay, same thing on the other side. And since I've already placed these once on the other side, I know what they're going to look like, so I can drop them down in here to begin with. Oop. We'll take care of that Z fighting in a moment. Put in the fence work first. Makes it easier. That looks correct. Okay. Now, before I put in the power and we still want the power and the hypertube in. We've got this. This is looking good. It needs to be retextured. So, I've decided that I kind of like asphalt for the areas where I'm going to be putting in the train stuff. And that gives me that faint line I was talking about. Remember, I carefully oriented the fix-it foundations so that I would get my line down in the middle when I went asphalt. And for these guys in the middle, I don't normally do concrete, coated concrete, but I saw he did it over here. This looks really nice. It kind of looks like it's wetted, got a little bit of reflection on it. I wonder how he got that. He painted it somehow. Still looks pretty good. I have no idea if I can paint this. If I give it a steel finish. Ooh. That looks pretty nice. That looks like it might be a passenger platform. Yeah. But if I'm going to do that, I probably want these guys to be metal instead of concrete. So can I substitute the metal? It doesn't look like I can just control click them in. So I'm going to have to delete most of it. Small metal pillar. And on the edge. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. And same thing over here. Eat most of it. What if I also set you for carbon steel finish? Oh, doesn't do it. Oh well. I painted the other ones. I'll paint these just for consistency. So this is sneaking through a little bit in the middle there. I'm just going to have to accept that bit, yes. We'll see how this works in practice once I get it going. So far, this is a fairly cheap blueprint. We're going to be carrying a lot of concrete when we do our builds. That's more iron rods than I would like to be using. Our iron rods deplete fairly easily. How is it that he only used 40 rods? I'm already way over. I don't understand. Metal pillars, metal pillar. Construction fence uses 2 rods. Modern railing uses 2 rods. Did I use... Oh, I put in more railings than he did. Do over here. Oh, these are frame windows. Okay. You know, I guess I'm just going to have to suck it up and understand that I'm going to be draining the rods really quickly. Oh, well. It's his stuff at this point. Or we could ditch the railings. Yeah, I'm going to ditch the railings because I am cost sensitive. I mean, I am good with filling my inventory full of concrete, but iron pipes is where I draw the line. So the 30 plastic, our plastic is running at a low rate. I forgot that these guys use plastic. That's unfortunate because I can't afford the plastic. I can't. Maybe in the future. Maybe in the future. So for now, you're going to go back to plain old concrete. Sorry. And you're going to go back to plain old concrete pillar. As much as I hate to do this, looks really nice, but I just... if I'm going to be carrying something, I want it to be just one thing that I use a lot of. And if I have to put a whole bunch of uploaders in for concrete, then I do that. The other thing is, do I need the outboard railings? I don't think I need these. Let's keep it cheap. The cheapest possible build meets our needs. That still works. And we're down to 235 concrete for the build and nothing else. So a stack of concrete will build 2 of these. Well, now we need to put power in the middle. I'm just going to grab the power. That need to be centered. There. So we're going to be adding to, let's see, some steel beams and some wire. Those are available in quantity. It's good. And he needs to be turned. I didn't check that. Correct way. Now the next trick is getting the hyper tube in the middle. I think my easiest way of doing that is to bring up this guy. That. Because you can't actually build the hyper tube onto him. Put it out here, but then I'd have to somehow get the holes. But what I can do is I can put in walls. And then sneak hyper tube wall holes in. Now we have to get inside there to connect between the wall holes, but that's just... oops. Filter only the foundations, just the walls, so I don't take away my power thing. Got those guys. Connect the tube. Here's the clever bit. I don't need to keep the wall holes. I can now connect the tubes from blueprint to blueprint. I think I need one of those tubes every other blueprint, but I only need him. I could put 6 blueprints between here and the next one that needs a tower. There's my first blueprint. That is 5 long, cheap train, tower, and tube. And I am going to use a tower icon for this because it's going to go in a row of them that are all CTs. He's got that. He's got the power tower. Save. That replaces the version of it that I had before. But the next blueprint is the same thing without the tower. CT with tube. And his icon, hypertube. Actually, the version that has only the hypertube, I'm going to remove platform. And I'm going to remove the pillars. But we are going really bare bones here. I really don't want to be spending a lot of resources when... And that guy is different because he got painted by mistake. And if I do that, he comes in sideways. So we turn. There we go. Let's say this again. He is 5 long, cheap train with tube. Save blueprint. Take away the tube for the version that we don't want the tubes in. 5LCT. Version is only 3 long. These come in handy when you start doing curves. If you want to take the entire thing and just curve it very slowly across the landscape. It's not a turn. I can do 90-degree turns. I'm going to do the 90-degree turns by hand. So 90-degree turns and junctions and ramps, those all happen by hand because there's only a few of them. And there's a 1LCT. For now, it's this. Later on, when I have a lot more resources available to me and I've got faster uploaders and so on, I will upgrade all of these blueprints with extra bells and whistles. And I need to change the icons on them. Plain ones are just going to be a rail. Load blueprint. LCT select icon is rail. Five LCT icon is a rail. Now I was gonna be unlocking things while this happens. I didn't do that. Let's go continue our unlocks. Darn it. If I bopped back here every 5 minutes, we'd be done by now. Logistics. That storage box has stuff for logistics. He required a lot of reinforced iron plate. I actually had to go run and get it. That's not a problem. Blueprint designer. There. So we are not as pretty as bits. We are, however, substantially less expensive. So for corners, there's several ways that people do corners. They all basically end up being, for doing turns, not tight turns with the belts, but long sweeping things. They do things like, we're going to bring this guy, well, whatever the mechanism, it's always add another thing there, but turned by 15 degrees and lined up at that corner. Turns out, over the course of 90 degrees, that doesn't quite meet up. What is my best way of showing this? I'm not very good at this. We're going to run this out to the corner here. Go there. Actually, I would have to build it all the way around and show you that it doesn't line up. We've got some time. Go ahead and do this. Once I've turned it once, you notice I can just bring it in there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, it's already aligned. And normally you would go down below and loop these down. So it's all on the same level. But you see where we're by 5, 10, 15. Bear with me. This one, we're mainly just waiting for the thingy to get back. That's because the actual these are actually, it's about a radius of about 10, okay? So 5, 10, 15, 5, 30, 35, so 30. From 30 degrees, if I zooped back by 10, okay. 11, I guess it's 11. These are almost on top of each other. Almost. Difference isn't really obvious until you get out to the 90 degree. We'll continue this while we're waiting for our pod to return. I'm going to have to bring some power up. 5. Or let's do it every 30 degrees of turn. I could put that at default and save myself a click. Box. Trader's returned. I think I'm going to do is leave the boom box behind. Stick it here. Fixed research. Hazmat suit. I'm going to build a quick hazmat suit before I go back to our tinkering around out there. You and you and you. So we're going to need a hazmat suit and we're going to need some filters. And for the hazmat suit, we're going to need fabric. I have some tucked away here. We are now wearing a hazmat suit. Not going to do us any good until we have some filters. So let's grab, oh boy, I need to make some more filters. Let's at least make a few of these guys. Need some iodine infused filters. Not to make very many. We're all set. In between recordings, I'll go take care of that. Okay. So yeah, I'll go make some filters in between recordings. I'll keep the jetpack on me for now. The other thing you can do is put things like the jetpack up in the dimensional depot. So for instance, I could put my chainsaw up there because I'm not carrying any fuel for it. I could put my jetpack up there and stop carrying fuel. I could put my fabric up there for no particular reason other than the fact that I don't want to be carrying it. Put my filters up there until I need them. It gets them out of my inventory. Even put my Mercer spheres up. Hey. Keep a few Mercer spheres up. So we're still waiting for the pod to return for our last unlock. And I was making this little curved stairway thing. What you do is you bring these all back down to the same level. And yes, you do get a little bit of clipping on the side, but it's not actually, I'll show you with one of them. Especially if you set to a different thing. Let's say you're running all this as concrete, looks like that. But if you do it with asphalt, this is one of the reasons why I like using asphalt for the train things. Other thing you can do is I think you can make all these as ramps. Let's try that. So foundations, asphalt, meter ramp. I'm just going to put a 1 meter ramp on top of each one of these. I think that didn't work. I did it with the wrong one. I want to take this guy. Now they're not perfect. The inside is going to have a little bit of a lip. Okay. Your choices when you're running the ramps up like this is you either have a lip here on the right or a gap on the left. Let's get rid of the ramps for now. That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at why this is not actually correct. It's not off by a lot. Ooh, last unlock. I may not get to demonstrating it. These unlocks are happening faster than I expected. There we go. Now, I'm going to finish this little stairway out here so we can take a look at what the actual difference is in our alignment. It's not going to... So that's 50... barely on the corner. So 30, 60, 2/3 of the way there. probably should have just built a blueprint with some of the arc on it. Would have made it faster, but it wouldn't have made it absolutely clear that each one of these steps is the same thing. It's a 5-degree rotation around that corner. And there. Not quite there yet. So that looks like it's lined up. Draw this across forever, and we're going to take this guy vertical, 4-meter guys. So over the course of that 90 degrees, built up that much air. It is diagonal, so what I would do would be I would zoom out these angles. I would bring it up here. I would do 45 degrees up from there and 45 degrees around from here, and then do something to extend the two here, which are going to be aligned to each other. They're just not going to meet. Okay? Because we have to make up for that much diagonal movement. I believe that is. Just, it's like almost exactly half a meter. Almost exactly the minimum step of a pound. So, we're almost good. This is so close. The other way to do this is to start out with one guy in the middle and then put one on top of it, rotated 5 degrees and zoom out, and one more another 5 degrees and zoom out. But this way works better if you're doing blueprints. The problem is getting the appropriate extension mark in the middle. 5 to... So at this square, the guy coming up from the right and the guy coming down from the left would be at slightly different places, but they would be misaligned along this axis. Anyway, heat experiment. We're just going to get rid of you. Mark everything before over here, so I'm within power that I'm getting. There. So we have done our cheap railroad. We have done our unlocks. The pod that's returning now would be when we could unlock the next thing. And the interesting thing that we have now added, I'm going to go over this really quick before I call it a recording. It's the blender. Hello, Mr. Blender. And apparently I haven't unlocked the alternate recipes. I didn't realize that all the recipes I was thinking of for oil and for aluminum are not standard recipes. They must be alternate recipes. Here's batteries. So batteries are going to require sulfuric acid, which we just unlocked. Okay. And some aluminum solution and aluminum casing, which is why the battery factory will be part of the aluminum factory, because it will tap some of the aluminum solution directly out of the middle. This is going to mess up our balance. We need to make sure that we build our aluminum factory to tolerate drops in the aluminum solution. So from here on, it's mostly just unlocking recipes and copying them into my planner and working out what we want to do. That's all offline stuff. I want to do a little demonstration of the train stuff. We can try it. I mean, it's a short recording, so. The other thing I want to try is, do I need the ladders anymore? I mean, if I've got, as long as I've got the wires going down the middle, I don't think I need the ladders. For transit, I don't know how far I can be away from that wire. Okay, so these wires, the Hoverpack does not grab from those wires. Interesting. Which means I can't ascend the wire there. Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping I could just zoop up the wire to the top there when I had it. So we need to do this. Okay, so you're going long distance. Switch back to the parachute. Parachute, so you're not dependent upon electricity or fuel or anything. The parachute just always works, and it always sets you down gently, even if you're in the middle of someplace really bad. I don't need to go up there to do my demonstration, do I? I could really start the demonstration anywhere. Oh, let's start it up there. I'm set to do that anyway. So, coming up to the top, that's a 4x4 foundation. If I clip a 5x5 on top of that, it means that the center of that 5x5 will be absolutely centered on the power stem. But it also means that the individual foundations of the 5x5 are offset 4 meters in each direction from the global. So is that are offset from the global grid by half a foundation in each way. I want to put our thingy on there. Blueprints. Let's actually put them in place. Keep track. CT, CT, 5 CT, 5 CT with 2, 5 CT powered. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this guy on my bar. We're going to this guy up, and I'm looking for the arrow pointing toward me. It's hard to see. So here's our platform. So we need a hypertube connection every other one. Where is it? So you have to kind of point yourself at the ground there. There. 1.5 LCT. CT tube here. That works. Okay, so it's tube connection. Jump to there and just tube across. So the one thing I didn't blueprint was my end stations. I guess I'll just have to do them manually. This gets a hypertube entrance. Oh, and he needs to connect down below. Let's do that real quick. So if I were to jump into that hypertube right now, we would zoom out at the end. Put it somewhere I can actually jump into it. Entrance, and I'm going to put a wall here so that just in general, you know, you want a wall so you can get thrown out here. You don't want to get thrown off the edge. Just going to zoop a wall across. So now if I jumped in there, I'm going to be thrown off the edge. I do have my parachute on. Whee! Yeah, I didn't do it quite in time, so we're going to have to go back to the... That's nice, fast transit. The one thing I haven't allowed for is having that hypertube go off to the sides. I'll have to work on that. I'm going to do another one of these. Do this. Put in the tower and tube on the... Put in our wall. It needs to be, okay. It probably only needs to be the middle one. I'm going to put an entrance at this end as well. Works. I don't normally do hypertubes much, so I'm a little unexpert. Power you. So we actually didn't go very far between these guys. We could put this guy much farther away. I did want to get a full hypertube experience from A to B. Now the other thing I could have done, oh, I didn't need a wall at all. The other thing I could have done was instead of using this as my terminal, have my terminal come in from the corner end, and then arrange something so that I could also go off in the other directions. That's probably for another day, working up a central piece like this, which instead of being a through area is an endpoint going 4 ways. You end up in the middle with 4 of these guys. You choose which way you want to go, and we have some way of keeping you from jumping out. Maybe arrange it so that if you do nothing, you just keep on going, but a way of if you push yourself off to the side, you get out. Maybe? In any case, it would have to be arranged so that it didn't conflict with these being rails. Oh, there's the other thing I checked before we go. Ways. So apparently, with the asphalt arranged in that direction, the railways go 90 degrees away from one. Fine. Start you at the middle. Or can I? That's maximum. So this railway costs 5 of each. This one costs 8 of each. So it's costing 13 total to go from the middle of this guy to the middle of that far guy. I don't know. Half. Out. Anyway, so the rails do not line up with 5-meter foundation, 5-meter blueprints. So they'll just kind of have to be striped in where they are. If we want to go up or down, you start off with a ramp. We might do a ramp there. And we might go to a double ramp at extending off into the distance. Gives it a decent look. If you use double ramps all the way, you end up with a real ugly edge down below here, but using the single ramp, you get that kind of that works. And if you're really picky, you can delete those two, come together. I think we're done up here. I'm gonna head back to base. I'm gonna call it a recording. And I'm gonna go putter around with the blender and alternate recipes and see what I can find out. I expected to see more recipes in the blender when I opened it up. That was kind of a shock. I'll go open up some alternate recipes and we can start thinking about what we want to do for our oil and our plastic. See you then. Hello? That not stopping. When keyboard stuff gets reset, yeah.